And away we go. It's the DFS Early Bird from Awesemo.com. Dan Strafford and Eric McPherson. You may know him better as your old pal, Emac. Emac, how the hell are you doing? I feel like we haven't talked in months.
It's been a long time, fella.
It's been months, hasn't it?
It's been a long time. I'm going to play the Lofty role here. So
you're dropping the fella. I appreciate that. I get it. It's been, I think, about 2 months probably since we've actually, done a podcast. Not that we haven't spoken or IM'd or done that since over the 2 months of, the transition period here from one former employer to another. But we are here on the DFS Early Bird. As you all know, if you're listening regularly, we come to you 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. It's Dave and myself, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Emac and Adam typically Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Adam had some drinking to do on Wednesday night, I assume, and I kid because I love. I don't know what Adam had to do, but I'm here to fill in for Adam and thus push Emac over to the solo analyst role. I'll have some takes on this slate because it's 3 games. Why not? But you can use the promo code EARLYBIRD over on Awesemo.com. That'll get you 1 free week, and that's all bells and whistles, all included there. You want to know, and I'm going to make this very specific stipulation here, you're going to sign up, you're going to put in some information. If you don't cancel your subscription, you'll get charged. And that is how absolutely every single purchase in your life will go from here on out. You put your credit card information in, eventually you're going to get charged. So I'm just putting that out there that if you want just the free week, be on top of it, cancel it day 6.5. Just so those listening understand, hey, this is how this works. Oh, okay. Now that that's out of the way, Emac, a 3-game slate, a short slate, one that still has some gigantic prizes on both FanDuel and DraftKings, as they have done many times over. Obviously, NFL a few days away. You do have the showdown slate Thursday night. So first tip for NBA is 8 p.m. So you know that. We have Golden State, Houston, Atlanta, Denver, and San Antonio and the Los Angeles Clippers. In some alternate universe, this Golden State-Houston game would stand out as a, Western Conference Finals preview, or as a, that game that should be the finals, right? That was what we heard last year, that the Rockets and the Golden State Warriors should be the finals. But yet here we are with injuries, infighting, Carmelo Anthony. We have a game that's at a 220 total and is even currently. So it is a pick'em between a 6-7 Rockets team and a 12-3 Warriors team, but lots of infighting for the Warriors between Durant and Draymond Green. You have Steph Curry on the shelf with a groin injury. On the Rockets side, you have a Rockets team really trying to find its way right now, Emac. And I haven't heard any new news. Is Carmelo cut? Is he waived? Has he been traded? We're all waiting on that as well. I know the 76ers have been listed as potentially a landing spot for him, but we're going to go game by game here simply because of the shorter slate. This would obviously probably top a lot of lists for Game Stack, being it is pegged as a Vegas pick'em. What do you got here? How does this game break down? Who are the players that are at least on your early radar here?
All right, so let's have some fun here, Dan, and this will work off with the first one. So of our 6 teams on Thursday's slate, 3 of them are in the bottom 5 in pace this year. You tell me which 3 they are by looking at the 6 choices.
Oh, see, this is what they call a trap. This is what they call a trap. I'm gonna say Atlanta is not last in pace because they're terrible. I'm gonna say. This is interesting. I say San Antonio's last, one of the bottom ones in pace, just because the Spurs.
Correct.
I'm going to say Denver is as well.
Correct.
This is the Monty Hall theory, right? Where I can start cycling through. And I'm going to say, it's not Houston, is it?
It indeed is Houston.
Yeah, like that whole 7 seconds or less thing with D'Antoni has gone completely out the window, hasn't it?
Yeah, and that's the thing that was kind of surprising for me, because we talk about the pace quite a bit. And the thing we have to be careful is because of the shot clock change and because of where they position the ball on some of the inbounds rules, et cetera, they've encouraged more offense here. So it's not only being a faster pace, meaning the games are more up and down, but it's no longer always a 24-second shot clock in certain situations. And and they're no longer always taking the ball out from underneath the basket. So these are the things that start to add a few possessions. So within the context of everybody playing under those rules, we have Houston is 28th, Denver is 29th, and the Spurs are 26th in pace. Atlanta is first, and they all season. Now, crummier teams tend to run because that's just, let's see what we have. Let's go out and do it. We saw that with Brooklyn the last couple of years. They're not doing it so much at all this year, but they have done that in the past. Surprisingly, Denver used to be one of those teams where they would try to run people out of the gym and just use that advantage of the altitude in their favor. Clearly, they're not this year, but they're such a deep team that it's been quite interesting. And then Golden State at 14th. Now, the thing you say about Golden State and Houston, well, yeah, they're two of the most efficient teams at scoring there is. So we're not going to let this dictate a lot. We can't start crossing teams off our list. We only have 6 of them. But from a perspective's sake, I wouldn't have guessed that this 6 had 3 of the bottom 5.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. No, that makes total sense.
All right. But looking at this one, so we'll go game by game here to check things out. As you said, we start at 8 o'clock for the lock. We have Steph Curry is going to be out at least 10 more days. That's going to be 5 games within that. But with his ankle issue, he's nowhere close to returning. And when they bring him back, they want him at full strength. On the on the Houston side, we know that Gary Clark is questionable with the hip injury. Gerald Green is questionable with an ankle injury. And then Carmelo Anthony has, as you kind of mentioned, that quote illness and is not with the team because it's contaminating, I guess. But other teams I've heard per a couple articles and tweets that might be interested in him, and we never know if this is his agent floating these out there, but the Lakers, that's just going to be a mess.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. LeBron and he are buds.
Yeah, I guess, but that's taking away from a lot of good wings there. The Pelicans, which I think is actually kind of interesting. If he was out there on the second unit, it wouldn't be the worst thing. And then Portland was the other team. And I actually don't think Portland would be horrible either with their second unit. If he can go somewhere where he can just dominate the second unit, it's fine. It's when he goes in there and gums everything up for the starters, it becomes a problem.
Sure.
But looking at the game, Golden State and Houston, we're assuming Draymond Green is going to play. He was suspended for 1 game to cool off after his tete with one Kevin Durant, who's going to be a free agent. Now, I'm sad that Adam's not here because Adam is a Washington Wizards fan. He grew up in Baltimore. So I was going to float my conspiracy theory.
Sure.
I'll do this for you. So this is now a neutral party. But after the game, Durant, by the way, from the D.C. area.
Wearing a Redskins hat.
His Washington football cap. Let's not forget DeMarcus Cousins, kind of his teammate now, was the shocking peacemaker in this little altercation, or the secondary altercation of words between Durant and Draymond. He's buddies with John Wall. What if the two of them ended up, because they're both going to be free agents this year, what if the two of them ended up in Washington, D.C. with the Wizards?
Scott Brooks would break them all. Like, it just they would all be broken basketball players by the end.
My hope is that Scott Brooks and Ernie Grunfeld would not be a
sure. Fair enough.
So anyway, but on to the real stuff here. We definitely want to give consideration here to sort of the big 3 that is now Houston. That would be James Harden, Chris Paul, and Clint Capella. These teams have seen each other countless times. Now, this is slightly different iteration here without Curry, and we don't know where Durant's head is in this. And frankly, we don't even know where Draymond's is either. He's just, his poor attitude just tends to pop up at the worst possible times, much like his flailing feet when they're near other people's groin area. But those would be the 3 guys I'd really like to look at. Minutes could appear. As we mentioned, if Gary Clark is out, if Gerald Green is out, that, of course, would give a little boost here to Eric Gordon. PJ Tucker's been dealing with illness, and then he's perpetually dinged up. But he would get a little more solidified minutes. We have James Ennis is back. The reason we're mentioning all these names is there are only 6 teams in our player pool. So these are going to be the kind of guys we're going to have to look at. It's hard to speculate at this particular time which of those would be the best value. Ideally, one of these guys is out, if not 2 of them. That elevates the others. If all of them are playing, it's pin the tail on the cheap guy and hope you get right or get it correct for DFS. On the other side, looking at things, I think Durant is just absolutely phenomenal. And he would be my choice amongst the players on the slate of the person I would want to go to. I hope he's cooled off a little bit and he's just going to be like, you know what, I'm going to do me. I can't pout. We gotta keep things in perspective here. And we need this win because we want to start banking them, because if we keep dealing with injuries, we're going to need them. Now, the interesting thing about Houston is if now this is one of those, if the season ended today, they're 12th right now in the West. Granted, 2 games out of 8th. So 2 games is 2 games. Everybody's still pretty bunched up. That's also kind of shocking. So they need to start being serious here. So I think this is going to be a fun one to watch. It, of course, will be the 8 o'clock national game. So if you're not busy watching the Green Bay Packers and the Seattle Seahawks, this would be your alternative choice. Quinn Cook, I think, is a solid play. His price is going up, so I'm not doing cartwheels over him because he'll be dealing with a little bit of Chris Paul defense, though it hasn't been as vaunted as it has in the past, just because in general the whole team's sort of been breaking down. But that's never a good thing when you have a score-first point guard who is going to be probably matched up against Paul. So looking at anybody else, I rarely play Draymond Green, so I don't think I'd be looking for him here. Clint Capella would be a yes for me. And Klay Thompson, someone I rarely go to. I also like him in this particular matchup, but even or enhanced by the fact that it is just 6 teams in our player pool. He has been relatively consistent. We know that so much of his fantasy goodness depends upon his scoring, but he has picked up, in the absence of Steph, a couple assists more than normal per game. He's getting a couple more rebounds than normal per game. Now, when you add those in to the fact that he's also getting more scoring at about 4 points per game, that adds up, and all of a sudden he slightly outperforms what we're used to seeing from him. So that's what has him in my particular wheelhouse here. And then if you're looking for the scrubs for Golden State, I don't even know where to steer you because it's whack-a-mole. Some days it's Andre Iguodala, some days it's Kevon Looney, some days it's Jordan Bell. McKinney is in the mix from time to time. I don't really like any of those guys, even on the short slate. Anything you see that I didn't cover there?
No, and it is obviously a short slate when you see Klay Thompson jump up to 7,400. I know he's been better of late, but still a price jump for him here. You know, a short slate, you're going to have some fun. Emac said it at the top. Some may say you may need to play more lineups with covering off on things here. But for me, I'm going to have some fun with some lineups, probably going to game stack 1 or 2 games here and see what happens. And I think this obviously is a clubhouse leader on where you want to go in that regard. I don't think you can make too much of the Durant-Draymond stuff. You can go into narratives all you want, but in the end, they're professionals. In the end, they're paid to do this. So I think both are fine. From the Houston side, you know, this is a team that I don't really know has an identity right now. So I'm really transfixed on Harden and no one else. I know Chris Paul has upside. I'm fine with that. But on a short slate, I'll take the Harden. The 8K price tag for Paul is nice. But I might like, Gilgeous Alexander or Quinn Cook more at a much cheaper price tag on this slate than I will at Chris Paul. So let's go on to Atlanta and Denver. Looking here, it's a 222 over-under, so more than our Warriors-Rockets game. We mentioned already that this Hawks team plays at the fastest pace in the league. You know why? Because they suck. They're terrible. And so, one, they're putting up bad shots, so the other team gets back and they're moving faster up and down the court. But two, when teams are bad, they tend to try to move at a faster pace. Just get the ball up and down the court and see what happens. So you have this 222 over-under, but it's a 12-point Denver advantage in the spread. We talk often, EMAC, on these podcasts, on our shows here at Awesemo.com. Blowouts, well, somebody has to score the points, right? It can't be that all the stars don't reach value. When blowouts happen, it's usually because your stars are doing what they're supposed to do, putting up big points, big values. Are you concerned by this spread? Do you see a Jokic being really too much for Atlanta, and thus, maybe getting 18 and 12 and being out of the game early? I feel like this is going to be a fine spot for plenty of Denver value, meaning Denver getting to value, not Denver value plays. But what do you got here in this matchup?
Yeah, this one's going to be another one that's a little bit interesting. We know that on the Atlanta side, they're missing we have questions about their entire front court. So we know that Dwayne Dedmon is away from the team for personal reasons for another game. We know that Zack Collins is still out with Zack Collins. I'm blanking on the Collins.
John Collins? Are we dealing with him?
John Collins. Thank you. Good God. No, sorry, I was looking at Zack Collins as I was tweaking some teams when Trevor Ariza was out. And anyway.
I got you, Mac. Don't worry.
Yeah, thank you. John Collins been out the entire season. He is their youngster and is a promising looking guy for the future, but he's been out. Now, the reason I wanted to bring him up, he actually made the list as doubtful. Now, they don't think he's going to play, but that's better than him being out. He's getting closer to return. I'm sure he will probably play before Thanksgiving, but it's good to see him on the list. And then the guy that popped up was the starter in the last game in place of Dedmon was Alex Lynn. He has an ankle issue, so he is questionable. So really, we're only going to – the first two guys are going to be out. But Alex Lynn, if he's out, that becomes a bit more of a mess, because then what is going to happen here with Denver? And, what is going to stop Jokic from just running amok? Running may not be the operating at will in the paint, going in for his scoring himself or dishing it. So that makes Jokic an interesting play, in my opinion. I'd still like to get to Durant more, because this is one of those games where I could see it being a lower scoring game than what is intended, just because Atlanta doesn't particularly have the horses to get there. Now, the next guy we'd want to look at is going to be Amari Spellman. He was someone that we were all fired up here at Awesemo to play in his last game, and he disappointed all of us. He started the game, did basically nothing, went out in the first quarter, came back for the end of the first quarter, did not play at all in the second quarter.
Right.
Came back in the third quarter, played 7 minutes, and then did not return for the rest of the game. That's a problem, because he scored pretty much bupkis. He had 0 points, and, well, let's just leave it at that. He had 0 points, and this is somebody that had been flirting with 30-plus the prior few games. I'm going to go back to the well, because I think he's really the only one still there in the cupboard, but I do want to call that out, that he didn't play for the last math is escaping me, 17 minutes of a close game against Golden State on Tuesday night. That's a bit of a concern. But we saw Taurean Prince have a decent game for the first time in seemingly forever. He got 39 minutes. He was the major beneficiary, because once Spellman checked out, Prince came in and he played the rest of the third quarter and all of the fourth. Now, those guys are both starters, so it doesn't necessarily mean it's a one-for-one replacement, because it was also Alex Poythress who came in. I don't want to play him. I just bring up his name, but he out. He had 20 minutes. He still only had 4 points. He's not really someone you want to look to. But I think I'm going to go back to Spellman. I'm okay with Taurean Prince. And he's someone that has not been on my short list on any slate that have more than 5 or 6 games, but it's 3 games. So I'll be looking at him. And then Miles Plumlee. Gosh, that name sounds familiar. Oh, yes, because he'll be playing against his brother Mason Plumlee. Just putting that out there, Dan. Just throwing that out.
Is this a narrative you want to play? The brother v brother? Like what you can't just throw it out there and let it sit. What are we throwing out there, Max?
Well, we're throwing out there that combined they may see 23 minutes. So be careful. Your mileage may vary. Now the hope is that the Denver Plumlee may get a little bit of extra run there towards the end if there's some mop-up duty, and they give Jokic the night off.
Overall in this game, obviously we're going to have to come down to roster construction and how the pricing works out. That's any slate. Not breaking any news there, but if you look at this game and say the one guy I want from this one is X, who's the one guy you want from this contest?
I am such a huge Gary Harris fan, and I have been wildly disappointed with him because once Will Barton came out or has been out with injury, I thought, this is when Harris kind of makes that next step. This is when he consistently just shows that he's going to be like, the number 3 guy on a really good team. Is probably his ceiling, but I've just been a huge fan of his, and he has not. He is disappointed in nearly every game. If we look at calling up his box score here, so we'll give this a minute to load. He has been playing the minutes. Let's see, 30 is the lowest minutes he has had since the end of October. And then he had, or I guess the December 1st, but he had 12 of 13 games where he played at least 30 minutes. He has had more than 20 NBA points once. He's had 20 exactly twice, and the rest of the time he's been in the mid-teens. That's not what I was expecting from him. The assists aren't really there, and the steals have come around lately. He's got 7 in his last 2 games, but he's gone entire games where he hasn't had any, and that usually doesn't happen with him either. So he's someone where I've just been really, really disappointed in the results. I'm still think just based on volume and opportunity, he is a reasonable play. He's getting in the mid-teens for field goals attempts each game. It's just someone that's been disappointing for me, but for his price, I like him probably the best in this game because when we look at Jokic, it's going to come down to, as you mentioned, roster construction. Do you want Harden? Do you want Durant, et cetera? And I think I want those guys over Jokic.
All right, let's, unless you have anything else from this game, we can go to Spurs Clippers and close it out. 219.5 over under -5 in favor of the LA Clippers. They are an 8-5 team, 6-1 at home. They are home in this contest, 7-5 for the Spurs. DeMar DeRozan has been great for the Spurs. Beyond that, you have a lot of guys that potentially have some upside. Obviously, over the course of this season, you've seen a little bit of rise in the value of Derek White. You have had a ton of injuries to the point guard spot. Obviously, Tony Parker moving on to Charlotte as well for the San Antonio Spurs. So you have White at 4,800 on this slate. Could be a nice filler from a minute perspective if you're going to try to pay up for a couple of studs to fill out your lineup. But matchup-wise, top plays-wise, this is an intriguing game. Maybe one that, of the 3, falls off radar because of the 2 teams involved. Again, 3-game slate, not expecting any ownership to be below 35% on any of the studs, but could be one that you get a little bit more value out of. Are there names here that you think stand out as potential plays to really round out your lineups? What do you got here, Emac?
Do not play Boban. Do not play him today.
All right. Why not?
Our reasoning for that is
he has big hands. I don't know if you know this, but he has gigantic hands.
He does. He can fit his wife in the palm of his hands. Literally.
Well, I mean, so can I, but that's because I'm so good to her.
Oh, boy. Don't try that at home, kids. Don't try that at home.
I'm flying without a net here, Emac.
Yes. In any event here, we've got no real big center for him to match up against.
Yep.
And that is just, it's a major problem. I'm calling up the box score, and I just want to make sure he may have actually been, he actually hasn't even played in the last 2 games. And this is we're recording this, of course, Wednesday night. I haven't looked to see. Oh, wait. No, the Clippers aren't playing. It's the Spurs that are playing. So he hasn't even played in the last 2 games. I don't think he's going to play in this one. I like Montrezl Harrell. I think he's someone you definitely want to give strong consideration to, even though he's coming off the bench. There's a very good chance he's going to be closing out the game here in what is a potential winnable one. This one should be a fun nip and tuck game. The Spurs are playing 3 and 4. They, of course, are playing Wednesday night. They will have Rudy Gay back. He did not play on Wednesday, but he was only going to play one of these 2 games of the back-to-back, so he's going to be in there. That's going to sap some of the value away from an opportunity away from DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge. So those guys kind of fall down the pecking order a little bit for me. Again, we don't have a ton of people we can cross off, but now we're saying, all right, well, we want one of Harden or Durant. Love to get 2 of them if possible. Not really excited to get Jokic, but if we look here at Aldridge and DeRozan, not really excited for those guys either. So we got to go look at some mid-tier people. I think that's where, as I mentioned, Montrezl Harrell comes into play. Danilo Gallinari has been pretty solid recently. I like him a little bit better than Tobias Harris, particularly when you're getting the $1,400 discount that you're seeing on DraftKings. This will enable you to upgrade from someone like Patrick Beverley to, maybe a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or someone of that ilk. I think that's where the roster construction is going to come into play, is if you can pick not amongst these super cheapies, but these reasonable guys, Pat Beverley, Derek White, etc. Not, there's not a ton to spend on. We've mentioned their names, but if you can live in this mid-tier and choose correctly, that I think is where your strategy is going to come into play for this one. So for me, I won't play a ton of lineups on this particular one. I've already decided I don't think I will have any Spurs outside of probably Derek White. I think Rudy Gay is an intriguing wild card just because maybe people are going to be off of him. I don't expect a major minutes limit from him. I still think we'll see 25 or 30, which is just fine by me. That's who I want to look to. From an injury standpoint, nobody's injured on the Spurs unless something happens as they're closing out the game here on Wednesday night. But for the Clippers, we know that Luke Richard Mbah-a-Moute is questionable with a knee injury, and Avery Bradley is questionable with an ankle injury. If those guys are out, that's what will give Patrick Beverley and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander another 5-minute boost each, which is what we've gotten used to seeing in their last couple games. If these guys return, the minutes are probably going to come directly from that pair. Last guy as a bit of a wild card, Lou Williams. We haven't just fired up to take him this season. He has not been disappointing. He has been relatively adequate. It's just that we haven't needed him, and we haven't seen one of those monster games like we saw when he first came over to the Clippers and when he was finishing things out with the Rockets, where he would come in and drop 39 NBA points, 35 NBA points. It took him until, November 1st to get his second game where he scored more than 20 points. Since that time, he has scored 20 or more in 5 of 6. He is coming around. People aren't necessarily noticing it, and he's someone I think that's going to be that mid-tier guy that hopefully he's hiding in plain sight. And I say that because it's a 6 team. You can't be truly sneaky on one.
There's very little hiding here unless you're rostering me on this slate. But Gilgeous Alexander is somebody I think is going to be on the winning GPP lineup. That's the guy that I'm probably going to have. Maybe I play 5 lineups, maybe more than that, but I'm not playing 20 or 150 or whatever MME that those who do that regularly are going to be doing. But he's the one who I'm sort of all in on at this present moment as we record the night before, just simply from a roster construction perspective, but also where I think this game goes and the minutes he's been getting of late. That's the guy that I want a lot of. Harden, Durant, absolutely. Don't get me wrong. Jokic, depending on what roster construction I get into, but Gilgeous Alexander is really where I see probably 100% of where my ownership comes when all is said and done. I really like the numbers over the past 3 games. And yes, that's a small sample. I recognize that. And I'd love to see him pick up a few more assists than he's been picking up for the Clippers. But I do like that a lot as one of my top plays for Thursday. Emac, any final thoughts on this slate or NBA overall as we close out the DFS early bird here from Awesemo.com?
No, a little tease though for NFL. We're starting in on, gosh, is it week 11 already?
Week 11, yeah.
We have Thursday night football. It's going to be the Green Bay Packers heading up to the Pacific Northwest, taking on the Seattle Seahawks. It'll be a free article, the front page of Awesemo.com. By the time most of you guys are listening to this, and for sure before lunch on Thursday, that'll be posted from yours truly, breaking down the single game slate. We'll do that for Thursday night, Sunday night, and then Monday night football. Dan, they're sitting there at potentially one of the highest over-unders in the last 30 years, and the game is no longer in Mexico City. They have moved it to Los Angeles. The Rams will be hosting it. There were some issues with the field condition in Mexico City.
Do you know why?
Soccer games.
Well, yeah. Do you know what concert apparently set off the issue there?
Would it be Shakira?
It was Shakira. Your hips don't lie either, from what I understand. But so I wanted to check that out. Has it dropped significantly? I know it was up around.
No, it's dropped like a
point. Yeah, it went from 63.5 to 62.5. That's going to be a fun game. That is going to be a fun game to watch on Monday night. As you said, you get Emacs content there from a written side. I know Spags, Chris Spags does videos as well for these slates leading up closer to lock. So you can get your showdown and your one-game slate content from Emac and Spags each and every week for NFL. So that's Thursday, Sunday night, and Monday night. Listen, what we're doing at Awesemo.com is very plain to see. We have some great rankings, projections, content behind the paywall. You have the deep dive, which was formerly at a different venue from Lofty and Adam. But in front of the paywall, YouTube, lots of content. Lots and lots of content coming your way. So if you want to head on over, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Yes, that is free, but if you go behind the paywall, you get the projections and the rankings from Alex himself. You have projections from Hot Magic, a.k.a. Andrew Barron. Josh has his own as well for NBA. And then you have Jake and Homer Cleese doing NHL. Piece it all together, you get a little bit of the leg up on the competition and really can drive it home. So use the promo code EARLYBIRD. Again, one word. Name of this podcast to get you in for 1 week for free over at Awesemo.com. Always find Emac over on Twitter, Emac DFS. Find him, of course, in Slack chat for Awesemo.com. You can find Awesemo on Twitter, Awesemo_com. And find me at Dan Strafford if you so choose. And find me every Saturday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. over on FNTSY Radio. A shameless plug. Why the hell not? With that said, wish you the best of luck on Thursday night. Lofty and myself back with you Friday, Emac and Adam Saturday, and then we're back on the regular schedule on Monday. Best of luck on Thursday night. We'll be back with you right here on the DFS Early Bird.